Chapter 22, The Graveyard. Yesterday they escaped from the Waste Mart man and that other man. They ran in the night. They jumped over a wall and realized they had landed in a graveyard. I looked around the graveyard but couldn't find you. Where's Brooke? She couldn't have gone far. Arul glanced nervously into the shadows. Huti's disappeared too. He must be with her. We have to find them. My voice came out all panicky. I had a vision of a ghost swallowing you whole. Let's split up and search. Something rustled the branches of a tree. I am not scared, Mutu announced in a thin voice. I am not scared. We walked a few feet farther in the graveyard, and suddenly you popped right out in front of us, where you must have curled up on top of a grave. Mutu squealed, Ah! Quiet, you fool, Arul said. It's just the Ruku. I know, Mutu claimed, though his voice was all shaky. I was just pretending to be scared, for fun. You curled up in a tight ball, and I threw my arms around you. Kuti sat nearby, his eyes pricked up. You should be scared of those living men on the bridge, Mutu, Arul said. Not scared of these dead ones. He was right. The living posed a greater threat, yet my skin still felt clammy and my throat dry. Can't believe you wanted to run back just to get our money, Arul scolded Mutu. You might have ended up in a graveyard. I did end up in a graveyard, Mutu retorted. Well, dead in a graveyard, Arul said. Those men couldn't squish an ant dead, Mutu said. They were too muddled to aim their blows properly. You whimpered, and I stroked your back. For days you had been so much surer of yourself. Now your fists were clenched tight like they used to be when Appa was angry. You were silent for what felt like forever. Then you whispered, Go back, bridge. We have to stay here now. We had to run away from those men like we ran away from Appa. Amma, you whispered. I miss her too, but we're together. Squeezing my hand tight, you buried your face in Kuti's fur. It's good we moved, Arul said. See what flat beds we have here, Ruku? Nice and cool. Beds. You patted your grave tentatively, like you were considering his words. Nice? Cool? That's right. I forced myself to sound as bright as possible. High-class hotel we're staying in, Mutu piped up. But despite the super beds, I'll climb that big banyan tree over there, and I'll sleep somewhere up in the branches. Oh, up where the ghosts live? Arul said. I've heard ghosts usually hide in banyan branches. Or I'll sleep right here in the grass. Mutu stretched himself out. The grass is wet, I said. You'll catch cold. Pick out your very own grave, Mutu. Arul spread his hands expansively. There's so many to choose from. The drizzle had stopped and the moon was peeping out from behind the clouds. Come, Ruku, Arul continued. Let's show Mutu what to do. He took you by the hand and led you around, making a big show of touching each grave, like he was testing them for smoothness. Mutu stopped at the grave closest to the one Arul chose. Arul peered through the darkness until he could make out the inscription on the grave marker. So, Mutu is going to sleep above Mr. Vincent's remains. Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Now your turn, Ruku. Which one do you want? You chose another one close by and lay back. I sat beside you and smothered your brow. You shivered for a long time. Whether from fear or from being wet by the cool drizzle, I wasn't sure. When you finally grew still, I thought you had fallen asleep. But then you said, Story? Story, Mutu agreed. Story. Adrul echoed. Once upon a time, I said, 2 sisters and 2 brothers lived in a magical land. About time you added us, Mutu said. I could hear a smile in his voice. Chapter 23, Wedding Breakfast. When I finally woke, I couldn't tell what the hour was, because the sky was overcast. The drone of bloodthirsty mosquitoes had woken me several times during the night, and my arms itched with bites. Trying not to scratch them, I got up and stretched. Wake up, sleepyheads, Arul called to me in Mutu. You and Arul were already exploring the far corner of the graveyard where the grass looked as unkempt as the boy's hair. Not that ours was in a much better state. What a good place to hide, I said. The inscriptions had worn off many of the grave markers, and most looked like they hadn't been tended in years. The high wall teetered in some places, but mostly it hid us from view at the road. Lonelier and more neglected than our bridge. What are we going to do for breakfast? Mutu yawned. I'm hungry. Hungry, you agreed. You'll be delighted to hear, Adderall announced. We have been invited to a wedding breakfast. Wedding? I said. Yes, I forgot all about that wedding, boss. Mutu winked at Arul, and then he wound an imaginary turban on his head. Is my turban straight? Yes, but it's not as fancy as mine, Arul said. Dum-da-dum-dum-dum. Mutu started marching, beating on an imaginary drum. I didn't ask the boys what they were up to, because I was thrilled to see you return his smile, like your confidence and courage were resurging. Dum dum dum. You walked alongside Mutu. Dum dum dum. Arul followed, playing an imaginary pipe. Doo, 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 doo. We had lost our home, but you 3 were still cheerful, and I tried to forget my worries and be content with that. It's as large as my fairy tale palace. I gazed at the wedding hall from a nearby hill, where we had stopped to rest. Just the sight of it's worth that long walk. We could see over a low white wall and right into the pillared room where a newlywed couple sat cross-legged opposite the priests. The bride wore so many jewels, she looked like one of the trees strung with strands of twinkling lights in the surrounding garden. Rich people, Mutu said. They've stuck lights on the trees even though it's daytime. The music in the hall rose to a crescendo. The beat of drums and the whine of the Nadaswaram so loud we could catch the sound. Why do they play that silly pipe when people get married? Mutu said. It sounds like a frog with a sore throat. Pretty, you hummed slightly off key. Pretty? Right, Arul smiled at you. Stay quiet, Mutu. You uncultured brat. Ruku and I are enjoying the concert. The crowd of guests stood and showered the couple with rose petals. Perfect timing, Arul said. They'll move to the dining room next. It's around the back. Come on. As guests lined up to congratulate the couple, we walked downhill and around the hall to the back, where the open windows allowed us a glimpse of long tables on which banana leaf plates had been laid out. Servers came in bearing huge pots of steaming food. Ah, what a spread, Mutu sounded entranced. I was more impressed by how much the guests didn't eat, as the servers cleared away banana leaves still piled high with food. Here comes our feast, Mutu said as a man came and stuffed some bags into the dumpster outside the back of the wedding hall. When he was gone, Mutu skipped over to the dumpster and shooed away a couple of bedraggled crows that were hovering above it. He lifted out an untouched, unpeeled banana and waved it triumphantly in the air. Then another, and another. He handed them all to you. Arul joined him, and the boys discovered even more. Golden laddu balls, some half-eaten, some barely touched. I couldn't imagine throwing away a sweet, just wasting the whole thing. Actually, I couldn't even imagine wasting one bite of such a mouth-watering delicacy. Ignoring the dirt caking my fingernails, trying to forget that these were strangers' leftovers, I stuck a sweet in my mouth. So good, Arul mumbled with his mouth full. Try some, Ruku. We were all so hungry that Arul had forgotten about praying. Yuck, he said. Laddus aren't your favorite? Want to try a different sweet? Mutu picked off the bites of rice and vegetables that were stuck to a ball of syrupy galoob jamun and handed it to you. You'll like this. Smells of rose petals. Sweet? You sniffed suspiciously at the dark, sticky ball and then nibbled at it as daintily as a princess, while the rest of us hungrily cleaned off one leaf plate after another. Look, Ruku. Mutu motioned at the cloud of flies that hovered around us. Our meals are so delicious that uninvited guests have always visit. A skinny cow ambled over. Kuti barked at it. Shut up, you said to Kuti, placing a finger across your lips. As I was saying, Mutu said, uninvited guests coming in all sizes. The cow edged away, but you rolled up one of the empty banana leaves and held it out to the cow. It started chewing placidly. You leaned against the cow's side and crooned to it. Okay, so for today's response, the question is, what do we learn about the kids after what happened to them on the bridge? And so basically I want you to say something like, we learned that they will do anything to stay positive. I think we learned that, right? Or maybe you will say, we learned they are very tough kids. Or we learned they can handle difficult situations. Any of these would be great topic sentences. Okay? Then support your topic sentence with examples from these two chapters. You can use one of the ones I just wrote, or you can come up with your own. And you should be using ingredients for the responses. So you say, for example, blah, 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 blah. This shows blah, 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 blah. Another example. Okay? All right. Thank you.